I think the next kind of question that I would have if I was facing conflict within my network, I suppose from a manager's perspective or from the leadership and management group's perspective, if the network has made a decision facilitated by the leadership and management team, am I crystal clear as to why the decision was made? So was it to do with complaints? Was it to do with timing? Was it to do with finance? Was it to do with quality? Was it to do with equity? Was it to do with access? With contract arrangements? Was there a safety issue? Like, why have we made the decision? And then depending on which side of the fence you sit on, the next question I'm thinking would be like, was I clear on the decision that was being made? Was I fully informed? Did I agree to something that I wasn't quite sure of? Did I actually say yeah and I meant no? In this bit, we're trying to understand, why was a decision made? And also, what was my role in the decision? How was I consulted? How was I informed? So that's really, really important to understand what led to this decision and what was my part in the decision, and try to take all emotions out of it. And I know that's really hard. But really try to be objective in trying to understand. Okay, so hopefully you are now clearer on what has led to this point. The next thing I'd be trying to ascertain is, what is the actual issue? Am I a practice and I feel like the governance wasn't followed? Do I feel actually this was not an equitable decision and I'm missing out? Is there a trust issue? Is there a legacy of certain behaviours which keep coming up over and over and over again, which don't sit well with you? Is it a financial impact? Is your practice or is the network hit negatively financially? Is this an ongoing issue that we've just been going round and round in circles on and we just can't get to a resolution? So in this bit, we're trying to understand, what is the problem or what is the issue and what is the impact of the issue, so we can try to work out how we can fix it. So depending on the nature of the problem, it would depend on whether I got out the network agreement or not. So it really does depend. I think if there's high trust in your network, I'd be phoning you up and saying, look, this is the situation, this wasn't the intention, this is where we are, here are the options. Or I might go back to the network agreement and think, well, how did we come to this decision? Did we follow the governance? Can I evidence the governance was followed? Because then that would shape my decision and kind of my approach to the conversation on how to resolve it. So only you can decide on when you're going to rely on your network agreement. And in times of conflict, it actually is really important. So if it's around decision making, communication, allocation of resources, I would look at your board meeting minutes or your notes, whatever you call them, your network agreement, and just try to make sure what did happen. And if it wasn't followed, and usually it's unintentionally not followed, and there's no malice in these sorts of things, I would be thinking, how can we stop this from happening again? But this bit is like, is this a network agreement issue, or is this maybe more of a personality issue? So again, really be objective in this. Nobody wants to be here. I really want to emphasize, no one wakes up and thinks, I want conflict today. I want to cause, like stress and upset in this network. We all want to win. And practices all want to do the best for their patients and their practice and their staff. And it may just take a bit of negotiation to get to this. However, if all parties want to make it work, if you want to resolve this conflict, you absolutely can. You absolutely can. It's not easy. It is not easy, but it's more than doable. Now, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit. And I think I said earlier in this blog, you don't want to take it personally, but it's really hard not to, but we don't want to take it personally. However, I would encourage you to think, has there ever been a time in your life, personal or professional, where if you were to do it again, you would have done it differently. And if that's the case, can you move on from a situation knowing, do you know what? Actually, once upon a time, I made a decision which, if I could have done it differently, I would have done. And the reason why I say that is leading networks are really hard. And sometimes you do things with the best of intentions and you drop the ball. And sometimes you think you communicated in a way which everybody understood, and maybe the majority of people did, but I didn't check in with a couple of other people that raised their hands, so they weren't sure. So the human part of all of this is that sometimes people make mistakes, sometimes things could have been done differently, and sometimes we can't all get our own way. And sometimes we have to forgive, forget, and move on. And that's the human side of being a person and trying to lead in a very complex environment. If we go back to the context of what we said at the beginning of this vlog video series, that we're multiple businesses coming together to make decisions on the behalf of our population with partners that we may struggle to work with or sometimes see eye to eye. But that is business, and it's not unusual to disagree with your business partners, but just taking that human element into consideration. Okay? So the next stage is the commitment to move forward and the action, and also just a review on how to make sure this doesn't happen again. It probably will happen again. How can you minimize it from happening again? I hope that this is helpful. I've been really honest. This is my approach. There are lots of kind of, like structured conflict resolution frameworks that we use, and I've taken a bit from this and a bit from that. I also think it's helpful if any of you have done like a personality assessment. We use core strengths. Some of you have done Myers-Briggs, some of you have done DISC. I know there's this Stellar model. There's all these different frameworks, but if I talk about myself, one of my strengths is I'm quick to act. So when there is any hint of discontent, I want to squash it. I want to get it sorted out straight away. My overdone strength is that I can be rash. I can sometimes want to jump in too quickly before thinking, actually, just wait. So where I say slow down, like I've made that mistake, just like slow down, get your facts straight, acknowledge the situation, let them know that you're there, and then come to the table with an open mind and understanding that there are multiple truths in what has happened, and the mindset of how can we fix this and make it work, and understanding your personality trait. I was talking to a colleague and he said he found it really hard to admit when he was wrong. So he doesn't. He doesn't. Says nothing, just starts talking. Like we've all got funny little quirky ways about us, and really understanding your own leadership style, your own motives, how you act in conflict. So some people want to assert their position from the get-go. Some people are a bit more reserved, they're a bit more reflective. Some people hate conflict and will avoid it at all costs, which ultimately ends in more conflict. So being a leader, yes, you can follow the academic frameworks and your 6 top tips to managing conflict, but there is also really understanding yourself and your own communication style, your strengths, your weaknesses. None of us are superhuman in all of this. This will help you to be able to navigate conflict better, to communicate where you are, and also to give benefit of the doubt to other people, because we're all so different and complex beings. So I hope that this is helpful.